10 outsiders welcome to a far-off island, just 2 wind up dead individually by the obscure host recap. The movie opens in 1939. Vera is looking for a summer job. Isaac, the recruiter at the agency, offers her a position as an assistant for the Owens, commenting she was chosen specifically by them. Meanwhile, Isaac's secretary is writing a bunch of invitation letters for the guests that will be attending the Owens special party. A few hours later, all these people gather at the dock with General John to take a boat to Soldier Island, where the party will be held. But when they get there, they're surprised to discover the Owens haven't arrived. Butler Thomas and his wife Ethel explain the hosts will be arriving later and introduce them to the final 2 guests that got here earlier on their own, Anthony and Emily. The guests also discover that in every room of the house, there's a framed poem called 10 Soldiers, which tells the story of 10 men that got together to dine and died one by one in different ways. After dinner, the piece is interrupted when a strange voice coming from a speaker proceeds to name all the guests to accuse them of murder, even mentioning the name of their victims. All the guests are offended by this and demand an explanation, so Thomas takes them to the room Vera saw earlier and reveals this had been a recording. At that moment, the voice accuses the staff members of murder as well, and Thomas has to go check on Ethel because she's having a panic attack that makes her pass out. While Thomas takes Ethel to her room so Edward can check on her, Anthony freaks out and grabs William to demand answers since supposedly he was close friends with the Owens. Thomas wouldn't have played it if he had known and explained that he and his wife didn't kill anyone, but in a flashback, it's shown he did use a pillow to kill their previous employer while Ethel watched. Anthony and Emily deny knowing what the recording was talking about, and Edward explains the name mentioned by the recording was a surgical patient whose procedure got the usual complications and didn't survive. This prompts Anthony to suddenly remember the names. There were 2 kids that were playing in the dark and he accidentally ran over them with his car. The men take the body to Anthony's room and find the illegal uppers, but William forbids them from hiding them because this is now a police investigation. Ethel continues to have nightmares about the night of the crime, but her dreaming is interrupted by a mysterious knock on the door. He's suddenly woken up in the morning by Thomas, who wants him to check on his wife. When he leaves his room, he finds William looking at Anthony's body and making an important discovery. Anthony's mouth smells of cyanide. Edward doesn't take her seriously, and after he leaves, Vera has a vision of her old employer Olivia that reminds her of the day she lost the kid. Afterwards, Philip approaches Vera in private and explains he killed those men for diamonds before asking Vera about her truth, but Vera sticks to her story. Meanwhile, John's packing his things and remembering the day his friend Henry died. During the war, John found letters from his wife in Henry's jacket because they had been having an affair behind John's back. Downstairs, Philip asks Thomas for more information, and Thomas explains he and his wife had been on the island for a week, but they never saw anyone except for the sailor that came with supplies. Philip thinks the Owens must be hiding somewhere on the island and William agrees to go searching with him. John is also out for some fresh air, and when Vera checks on him, he confesses his wife died of influenza after the war and that he regrets not letting her be happy. After Vera leaves, John has a vision of Henry haunting him. In the house, a drunk Edward joins Philip and William on their search. They hear a noise coming from Anthony's room and Philip rushes in with his gun out, but it's only Thomas, who was looking for a camp bed that was stored in that room because he doesn't want to sleep next to his wife's body. Vera checks the figurines again and notices another one went missing. Remembering how she failed to save Cyril and was scared by all these deaths, Vera goes to the beach to end things, but Lawrence stops her and brings her back into the house. Lawrence came because he was told a friend of his was going to be here. Emily came because Mrs. Owen had been interested in her work on education. William was told someone would come under pretenses and a cop would be needed, so Owen supplied a list of guests, and Edward came as a doctor for Mrs. Owen. Lawrence thinks this is a riddle and the killer is one of them. Meanwhile, Thomas discovers some livers and kidneys are missing from the fridge. While Philip and William take the body to his room, Vera makes coffee, but Emily doesn't drink it because she can't trust it. Sometime later, Vera's walking through the house when she sees something that shocks her and makes her check on the figurines, confirming another one's missing. Afterwards, they search every room for the gun, and they even undress to only wear a towel or a robe to avoid hiding anything in their clothes. Vera changes into the swimming suit she had been wearing the day Cyril died, which makes her remember how Cyril had wanted her to marry Hugo and be his aunt. The men take the chance to ask Lawrence about all the death penalties he's given, and Lawrence admits he went to see every criminal die because it was his responsibility. Seaton had been different because he refused the hood to look Lawrence in the eye while he died, and that look still haunts Lawrence. The group begins to drink and discuss the weird hook in Vera's bedroom, but they suddenly realize Lawrence didn't come when Vera screamed. They rush downstairs and discover Lawrence has been shot in his reading chair, just like the poem says. The group hates the fact they can wait to die, so they decide to throw a party where they get drunk and consume Anthony's illegal uppers while listening to the recording with the accusations. Meanwhile, William thinks about the night his prisoner died. Vera's left alone in the room and begins thinking about the past again. Vera returns to the cliff, noticing something on the rocks now that the tide has lowered. It turns out to be Edward, who is also dead. Vera asks Philip to move the body, but as soon as he turns around, Vera steals the gun from his pocket, thinking he's the killer. Philip tries to take the gun from her, and in the struggle, his shoulder's shot. Vera then shoots all the remaining bullets until he's dead. As Vera goes through a breakdown, she remembers the day she testified in court about Cyril's death being an accident. She explained that she ran as fast as she could to save Cyril yet didn't make it in time, and everyone believed her except Hugo. When they talked in private, Hugo pointed out he saw her run while playing games and she was very fast, thus he believed she slowed herself down to let Cyril die. At that moment, Vera sees Cyril again, who takes her back to the house to show her the hook in her bedroom now has a rope. Vera gets in the chair and decides to end things like in the poem, only to change her mind when she sees the door open and Lawrence comes in. It turns out the Owens don't exist, and everything had been a plan by Lawrence to get justice for all the people the guests killed. He had faked his death, using the liver and kidneys he stole from the fridge, and everyone believed the doctor when he confirmed it, but Edward had lied for the sake of their alliance. Lawrence explains Seaton's diaries weren't made public because they were too disturbing, but they woke something in Lawrence, and when Seaton looked at him when he died, Lawrence finally understood they were the same. Lawrence's tumor never got better and he's planning to use the gun to match his death with the poem. That way the police will find 10 bodies but no murderer because they'll be chasing after the non-existent Owens. Vera tells him there aren't any bullets left for him, so they should lie together and tell the police Philip killed them all. However, Lawrence moves the chair and finally kills Vera as he reveals he still has the bullet he took from the gun to fake his death. Afterwards, Lawrence goes to the dining room and puts the 10 figurines together again. He prepares the chairs and drinks to make it look like he had company, then uses the gun to finish the plan exactly like the poem. Like, share, subscribe and comment for more exciting recap videos.